Greetings, I'm Karen Colligan, and welcome to the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. So, why do I care about leadership? As the founder of People Think, and in my tenure as a leader, as a consultant, and as a coach, I've certainly seen my share of very good leaders and my share of very bad leaders. And I thought, it'd be great to share the wisdom from the very good leaders. Hence the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. And you're going to hear from a variety of leaders who are in a variety of roles, sharing their leadership expertise by answering the same 6 questions. Every single leader is unique in their style and approach, and we want to capture that uniqueness and provide you, the listener, with a diverse way of looking at leadership. So let's get moving and talk to our next leadership guest. In this episode, I am thrilled to be speaking to Meryl Simmons, EOS implementer and business coach at Outpace Enterprise. We're going to hear all about Meryl's approach to leadership. So Meryl, welcome and thank you for being with us today.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you today.
Great. Can't wait to hear all about you and leadership, Meryl. All right. So tell us a little bit about who you are and give us a snapshot of your career journey before we even get into our leadership conversation.
Yeah, sure. So I'm an entrepreneur. I started my career in a clinical role. I'm actually a trained audiologist, so not the typical path of where I am today. So I'm a trained audiologist. I worked in clinic and helped businesses and practices and patients to, grow their business and patients to hear better. And then from there, I was always really excited about the business end while still remaining passionate about helping people. But after 5 years on the clinical level, I moved and transitioned into a commercial role with a medical device company. And they were somewhat of a scale up when I joined them. And so I had a great opportunity to really be a part of their growth and scale journey across 11 years, serving in various roles from customer facing and then moving into kind of more strategic leadership roles, building, growing teams, helping them to move from 70 million to 200 million in revenue and lots of twists and turns along the way. Some of the things that I'm excited to talk to you about today, I kind of wish that I could go back in time and, do it all over again and know the things that I know today. And then in 2020, I was furloughed and I decided to take a different approach and start my own business as a consultant, working with commercial teams and helping them to operationalize their go-to-market plans. And one of the things I just love is empowering people through process, through systems, through their customer journeys. And then I discovered something called EOS. And I felt so passionate about the practical toolkit that EOS offered leadership teams and businesses that I pivoted my business once again and my career once again. And I put all my energy into becoming a full-time coach and implementer. So that's about 2 decades worth plus of my experiences.
Yeah, I gotta love that. And it's funny. So when you're in a role, like you said, your medical device, and it's growing, and you have to pivot nonstop as a leader. Then you get furloughed, you decide, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And now you do that, and then you pivot again. And I mean, that's really what leadership is all about, Meryl. It's about recognizing, okay, I've set this vision, I've set this strategy, and my goodness, we need to reevaluate, we need to pivot, we need to make some shifts. It's obviously going to be good conversation. So thank you.
Yeah. And I love the thing that you just said right now, if I may touch upon it, of like getting really good at like the pivoting and resetting. But again, some of the major learnings that I've had in this journey is like when I wasn't focused on the journey, where I didn't know where I was going, it made it a lot harder. So, that was like a huge takeaway and, something I hope to maybe share today as well.
Yeah. Good. Love it. Okay. So let's get into our leadership conversation. So first things first, there's so many ways to define leadership. And part of why I do this podcast is so that I can really get understanding of how people define leadership, because it's so personal. So tell us, how do you define leadership, Meryl?
It is so personal.
Yes,
And I want to take the approach of obviously what resonates most with me as a leader and my beliefs, but I also want to help maybe our audience look through a lens of what I find to be what I'm really passionate about through EOS, and kind of look through that lens as well as a leader, because it was so eye-opening for me. And so I hope to be able to share that with the folks who are listening as well. But leadership at its core, I really believe, is vision, empowerment, and the ability to execute. It begins with having that crystal clear picture, which is what we just kind of touched upon, and something I said I was really mind-blowing to me, right?
yeah,
As a business leader, is knowing where you're heading, and then the ability to actually communicate that in a way that truly resonates with people. And, again, through the lens of EOS, just to kind of open our listeners' ears up to that, is like, we actually have an approach to this and a practice and a discipline around how we do this, and it's called shared by all. So it's how do we go, but how do we go above and beyond that, right? So it's about having that crystal clear vision, sharing it by all, but then how do we find ways on a daily basis? Strong leaders find ways on a daily basis to actually ignite that purpose, that spark in everyone. And then, being able to just craft that environment where each person can bring their best self to work, right? So if we're looking at leadership in a business, and really be able to contribute in a meaningful way to that shared vision. So that's thing one. And, I'll say too that, people get caught up in their day to day, their personal goals, kind of like what's happening in their world. And again, I think when we look at leadership, of what makes an effective leader is being able to continuously bring people together, realigning them in our collective mission, or in the collective mission and goals. And then, again, like breaking down silos, right? Fostering a sense of unity, and a shared purpose. I think that is a really strong leadership. And another thing too, if I might add, is just like, how do you address problems head on? How, as a leader, are you able to address challenges as they arise? Because they always do.
absolutely. No question about it. People involved, there's going to be conflict and challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And whatever whether you're a leader in a business or a leader in another kind of position in an organization, how do you tackle these issues or problems head on, and be transparent, right? So that you can be transparent with your people, but also be solution oriented, and creating a culture that, issues are not always seen as like the end, right? But maybe it's an opportunity to do things differently, right? So growth in mindset, sometimes it's the biggest challenges and chaos that cause change. How do you always take a look at a situation with an opportunistic mindset? And then just like, again, bringing people together, keeping them aligned, having the courage to navigate through challenges and remain true to your core focus, or I'm sorry, remaining true to what you value, right? Your core values, and knowing what they are. So when things get hard, you can lean on them and come out of it.
Yeah. And that's going to lead us to our second question about values. However, I do want to make a comment here in terms of, you talked about vision, empowerment, and the ability to execute. And in your talk there, you talked about igniting the purpose and sparking. And that's so important for people in terms of the vision, because if I'm working with a leader and he or she is not inspiring me and igniting me to that vision, what do I care? And I'm going to start checking out a little bit and looking maybe in another place. So it's so important for the leader not only to have the vision, but to be able to get everyone aligned to that vision in a way that they're excited, they're ignited, they're sparked about it. So yeah, I love that. Love. Good.
Yeah. Connecting, right? Just connecting the dots for others, but connecting with people.
Yeah.
I mean, people make up businesses, people make up organizations. So we've got to connect with each other.
Yeah. And, my company name is People Think. So what do I care about? It's people. So yeah, love that a lot. Okay. So
Yeah.
question number 2, I'm curious about your values as a leader. So when I think about values and I think about a leader being really crystal clear about their values, it's not only to make the decisions that are easy to make, it's also the way to make a decision that is complicated and complex and maybe a tough decision to make. And I always think that if you're clear about your values, then you'll be able to sleep at night, maybe not all the way through, but values really help. So tell me, what
Yeah.
are your top 3 values as a leader?
Yeah. Well, aside from the golden rule, which are always kind of my moral compass, right? Do unto others as you want unto yourself. So always leading through that lens. I think, thing one, right? If we're looking at the top 3 is clarity and transparency. That's really fundamental for me. I believe that being clear and transparent is being fair. Clarity builds trust and integrity, which are really essential, right, for leading people or bringing a business forward. And that means that you've got to walk the walk. You can't just have these values or rules for your people, but not exhibit themselves. So any coach, any leader, any parent, right? We can think of leadership through parenting. You've got to walk the walk. And so being clear and transparent, even when it's hard, and then expecting the same from your people, expecting that same clarity and transparency, expecting there to be an openness in your environment where everyone understands our goals and what their role is in being able to achieve it.
Yes.
So clarity and transparency, I think, are come to the top for me. The second one is empowering and accountability. I really love empowering teams and people. It's something that I've done throughout my entire career. It's something that lights me up. I just love developing people and empowering people to be their best, bring their best, do something different, bring change. But as a leader, in terms of leadership, this means giving people the space to make decisions.
And mistakes, Meryl.
And mistakes, that's right. And mistakes, to make decisions and mistakes. And again, it's about kind of clarity. Like you've got to, in order, they're all connected in a sense, right?
Yes.
You can't guide people forward if you're not clear on all the things. So giving people the room to make decisions, but also make mistakes, and encouraging them to own those mistakes, just like you'd own your mistakes. And when people feel empowered to take risks, that they're actually accountable for those outcomes, that's when growth and innovation happens.
Yes.
Like that is so exciting.
Yeah.
And so if you can create a culture where people feel safe to try new things, they also know that they have the space to learn from failures, they're going to push the boundaries.
And not be punished for those decisions that maybe, aren't the best ones or don't turn out the best. However, you pick yourself up, you learn from it, you move on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great segue, Karen. It's almost like you're reading my mind. The third thing that I had was being adaptable and resilient.
Yeah.
Today, like you never know what tomorrow's going to bring.
Isn't that the truth?
And so being adaptable is crucial as a leader, as an entrepreneur. I need to be flexible, ready to make decisions quickly without getting bogged down in the minutia. It's about maintaining kind of that big picture perspective, but also knowing like when there are problems or challenges that come up, you can get really smarter and smarter at identifying those issues at the root. So rather than just treating the symptoms, getting better and better, that's going to help kind of that adaptability and that resilience that you need. And they kind of go hand in hand to be able to kind of bounce back from setbacks, because setbacks will ultimately happen.
Yes.
But, strong leadership keeps things moving forward and, leading by example and, showing people, being that role model, showing managers, showing leaders, showing your team how to navigate through change and uncertainty with a bit of confidence.
And what I always say is stuff runs downhill, Meryl.
Absolutely.
As a leader, people are always watching you and watching the cues that you are providing to them. And if you are, as you said, clarity and transparent, okay, got it, check. Empower and accountability, okay, check, got it. And adaptable and resilient, okay, got it, check. Then you're allowing me to follow in your footsteps and do the same. And that's really important for people to understand. And like I said, stuff runs downhill, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That is for sure.
Yeah. And it's contagious, isn't it? Like
Yes.
that is a cultural thing, even if it's not true to your core values as a person.
Yeah.
But if you're in that kind of environment and you see what, it's kind of like the monkey see, monkey do.
Yes.
And it becomes contagious. And so staying really, really focused and really disciplined, it's not easy, right? It sounds really simple, but it's not easy to maintain that and always stay focused on those things as a leader, as you're building an organization, as you're building community and, teams, right? To be able to ensure that you've got those things always at the foundation is critical.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you said earlier about igniting the purpose and really providing that spark. So it goes right back to that. All righty.
Yeah.
So number 3, what's the best advice you ever were given by a leader?
That's a really hard one for me.
It's a hard one for everybody. It is, because I'm asking for one, just one. And we've all had so many great, and today's the day you'll give me one. And then if I interviewed you tomorrow, you'd say something maybe different. So just for today, I'll give you some slack. Just for today, what's the best advice?
Fair enough. I'm inclined to answer with, gosh, I've learned so much on what not to do.
Yes, exactly.
Our biggest lessons. So I'm going to keep my EOS hat on and I'm going to say, make the complex simple. I think this is really versatile. And, whether I'm helping teams to tackle big problems or communicate new strategy, breaking things down, being able to break things down into simpler parts always helps.
Mm-hmm.
And it's truly a game changer, right? And I think it's one of the things that, again, EOS really does help companies to do, but it's how do you make things less complicated? How do you reduce complexities and keep it simple?
Good, love it. Okay, number 4, we're currently going through an enormous amount of transition and change. We've got the layoffs coming, we've got world events and the economic implications of really both of those and so many other things we could spend the rest of the day talking about that. And you know what? We are not going to do that.
Nope. Are we talking business, Karen? What are we talking about here?
We're going right back to leadership, baby. So how do you lead through transition and change?
Yeah, this is a really hard one. I've had a lot of personal experiences and wounds through this as a leader, as a middle manager. I've had a lot of personal experiences through leading through change, which I think is actually one of the hardest roles in an organization when organizations are going through change and crisis. So, and of course, today in my work as a business coach, I help teams to lead through change all the time. And I found a few things to be helpful from my own personal experience. And then, of course, what I learned from others through sessions and my clients is guiding them is, clear communication is key. Mm-hmm. You've got to keep everyone in the loop about what's happening and why.
I love the why, because you don't tell me to do something. I love clear communication. I need to understand what's behind it.
That's right. That's right. And you've got to have consistency across your leadership team. If everyone is not aligned there, again, like you said before, it all kind of rolls down. So you've got to be tight there. You've got to have a cohesive leadership team. And, again, clear communication is key. And you may not know all the answers, but again, what's happening and why? I think if I had to unpack this deeper, and again, through my own personal experiences, is like, as you're building teams and companies as a leader, this is one of the reasons why it's so mission critical to make sure you've got the right people in the right roles to be able to handle things like transition. Because you just never, especially if you know and you anticipate transition down the line, that's like no brainer, right? But like, you always have to be prepared that there's going to be some kind of transition down the line. And so do you have the right people in the boat? right? That are
Yes.
going to be able to lead with you through transition. So I want the audience or whoever might be listening about this to kind of think about, how are you planning for that as you maybe build a leadership team? So do you have those right people? And then, sometimes you just got to roll with it. Like it kind of goes back to that adaptability. Show the team that it's okay to adapt and, like share what share the data, but be human. Data is helpful because it gives you a solid ground when everything else seems a little shaky, but we can't forget the human component. We're people. And so how do you handle yourself, right? And in the thick of it, role model, going back to those core values, leaning into them. So, reminding yourself and others why we're here and just leaning into that, I think helps as well.
Yeah. In my work, I often talk about the head and the heart. And I talk about, in order to be a leader, you obviously need to, your head, you got to be intelligent. You have to be able to understand the market, the trends, where we're going, the vision, the strategy, the culture, those kinds of things. At the end of the day, I think the heart wins out because it goes back to your comments about being human. And we all have a heart. It all beats. It puts blood right through our body. Isn't that lovely? And we have to remember to use it. And times of transition, people are often anxious. They're stressed. It doesn't matter what the transition is. And it's important for leaders to be able to care and be compassionate and have empathy around whatever that transition is. So the head and the heart to me, and like I said, the heart normally wins for me.
Yeah. And I want to add one point to this. And because I think we're always so, we talk about being mission focused and keeping our eyes on, helping us move forward, but stopping and asking your people, hey, Karen, like, what are you concerned about? Like, share with me what you're concerned about. Because when you can have those one-on-one conversations, and sometimes it's not always doable for every single person on the team, but certainly, if you have a team as a manager and as a leader for that team, like, share with me what you're concerned about. Like, tell me the things that you're nervous about. Let's talk about it. I may not have all the answers, but I want to hear it. I want to know how you feel like this impacts you, because this impacts everyone. You're right. Like, layoffs suck. Like, nobody wants to no one wants to have to make those decisions. But when we can make them as gracefully as possible, when we lean in to our core values, when we can share information that's clear as we can, that is who we need to be, right? In times of transition and times of change.
Yeah, agree completely. Yep. Human leaders are humans. We know that. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 5, we know the best leaders are curious and always learning. So what tools do you use in order to keep that brain moving?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm always trying to learn, I think I have the greatest learning about myself, quite frankly. Learning from my mistake, learning from others. I ask for feedback a lot, and I think it's amazing what you can learn when you really listen. So, I learn a ton from the sessions with my clients. Reflecting on them always, I think is really critical. How people conduct themselves, how teams navigate, how leaders respond. There's so much there when you're like in the room. I love podcasts. I love books. I really try to surround myself with people who bring different perspectives and experiences. I really believe it's understanding people. I think the more that you understand others, you learn as an individual, both personally and professionally. I also love going to conferences. I get really energized when I'm in a room full of other leaders. And quite honestly, EOS has played such a major role in how I think about leadership and organizational growth and change. It's super practical. Things I wish I had more of when I was leading and growing teams, especially through times of organizational change and transition. So I keep learning, and, I try to take my failures and learn from them, and, take my own advice of how do I look at this from an opportunity perspective.
And you said something earlier on in our conversation today about a growth mindset. And I think the greatest learning is when you do have a growth mindset, when you have conversations with people you don't agree with, and there is conflict, because that's where innovation and greatness comes from. So, our last question, and And this is really about keeping joy in our lives as leaders. And I really, truly believe that in order to be a leader, you have to be a whole person. And in order to be a whole person, you have to have some joy. What do you do to bring joy into your life so that you can really show up for your clients and be the true leader that you need to be?
So important. It's like the fuel yourself before you can fuel others. And I think that's probably one of the most important things to do as a leader. And it's so hard to do, right? Creating that balance. I think things can feel like a roller coaster from 1 hour to the next sometimes.
Absolutely.
So I think sometimes just stopping, like I hate to be cliche of the stop and smell the roses, but like sometimes you just need to pause, and appreciate and be grateful of what's happening in maybe the moment. And maybe it is the chaos to be grateful for.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why is this happening? But, as far as like creating balance and joy, I try to lean into community. I really find joy in building community and being part of community. Helping others really helps me. Also celebrating the small wins.
Yes.
I think people forget to do that. So I know I do myself. So I say this out loud to everyone, but I'm really just reminding myself of stop and celebrate the small wins. Like, what's one thing that went really, really well this week that you're proud of?
Yes.
Like, I think that's so important, and we don't do that enough. I'm a big walker. I love being outside. I love walking. I love to travel. That gives me joy and balance and perspective. It's like an opportunity to kind of like reset, get clarity, learn new things that are unrelated to what you're kind of stuck in, right? And be exposed to that different perspective. And also think about like, oh yeah, I love those things. Those are things I love. I love to be in the kitchen. Personally, it's where I take my biggest risks is in the kitchen, much to my husband's dismay. So yeah, being healthy, working out, listening to podcasts. I mean, just being with others really fuels me. Positive people, other positive people, and having interesting conversations. Like, it doesn't always have to be all like rainbows and roses, but like getting an opportunity to think, but in a supportive way, support each other and just do something great for the world.
Yeah. I love stop, pause, appreciate, and be grateful.
Oh, you summed that up so well. Thank you.
You said it, baby, not me. Yeah, beautiful. That's nice. So Meryl, thank you. Thank you so much for your insights and your ideas about leadership and how you've led and, your vulnerability about what your journey was like. And we all know there's twists and turns and ups and downs. And sometimes we don't want to communicate that. So, being a leader is really about being vulnerable as well. So thank you for being so open about all of that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's hard to talk about the scaries sometimes. Yes. Hopefully we all get better at doing that.
And that's life. That is life. No question about it. All righty. So thanks for listening, everybody. I'm Karen Colligan, and you've been listening to Meryl Simmons, EOS implementer and business coach at Outpace Enterprises. If this leadership podcast was of interest to you, go to our YouTube channel, People Think SF, and listen to all the distinguished leaders I've had the pleasure of interviewing. You're going to learn so much about the uniqueness of leadership. I know I have. And don't forget to share with your colleagues. Till the next episode of the Let's Talk Leadership podcast, have a good one. And don't forget to keep it real. Editing by Mary Lee Williams. Have a good one, everyone. Chat soon.